Hi, it's Jen. So today I'm going to be talking about my horrible book buying habit and the mountain of to-be-read books that I currently have, and what I'm going to do about that, approximately in that order. So, my worst culprit as far as category goes is juvenile fiction. I buy juvenile fiction, tons of it. That kind of started when my daughter was born. I started buying a lot of juvenile fiction. And then it got much worse when I started working in the children's section of a library. Now I no longer work in a library, but I still buy tons of juvenile fiction. I actually enjoy reading the category, even if it's just for the sake of finding things that I hope my kid will read later. You know, that sort of thing. So I have a bunch of unread books, which happens when you're buying really discounted books, so you can afford to buy a lot of them, and then you have a ton that you haven't read. Now, for the sake of making it easy on myself to start out, I'm going to start with the juvenile fiction shelf, because juvenile fiction, as far as sheer volume and numbers of books, juvenile fiction's my worst one. I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shelves of juvenile chapter books. So that's a decent amount. And of these, there are some shelves where I've read probably more than half, but there are some shelves where I've read significantly less than half. So I'm going to start with the first shelf, and I haven't come up with what I'm going to name this yet. It's probably something like Reading Mount TBR or something along those lines. I've seen that title used before, so maybe I'll go with something like that to make it easy to find. And then I'll just Mount TBR Shelf 1, Mount TBR Shelf 2, something like that kind of naming structure to make it easy to find. So yeah, I think that's the plan. So this is my first shelf, and I already sort of started reading these probably midway through October, because I put these shelves together and then had all my books out in the open, and then it was kind of obvious that I needed to do some catch-up reading before I bought too much more. So, shelf 1. I just read The Wizard and the Tree by Lloyd Alexander. It was interesting. It's one of his standalones. It's definitely juvenile fiction, but it's kind of like if juvenile fiction met Tolkien. Way easier, like, reading level than The Hobbit. At least it felt like that. It was less complicated than The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings. But it was sort of a similar dark kind of storyline. I mean, nothing compares to Tolkien, but, you know, still, I thought it was a decent read. I almost unhauled this one just because the book's ugly. I might still unhaul it. It's kind of back and forth. If I do unhaul it, it would just be, if I come across a nice copy later, I'd add it, but I don't know if I'd go out of my way to buy it, because even though I liked it, I can't picture my kid listening to it or reading it or anything. The next one is Crenshaw by Applegate. I just read this one. I was very surprised by what it was about. I thought it was just about an imaginary friend and it'd be kind of light and fluffy, and then it's actually about homelessness, which is good to know. There's not that many children's books about homelessness, and most of them aren't as nice as this one, so I will definitely be keeping that. Sense and Sensibility, I think I read most recently 2 years ago, so I'm not going to worry about rereading this at this time. This is that cloth-bound edition that I just took out of plastic. And these are in alphabetical order by author, in case you hadn't already noticed. So then I have Poppy by Avi. I have not read this yet because it's book 2 of the Poppy stories. So I don't know if I'm going to make myself read this because it's book 2. So we'll see. Maybe I'll find book 1 from the library and read book 1, then book 2, something like that. Come on, get back in there. Okay. Next one is Old Wolf. I also just read this one. The real draw for Old Wolf are it's just got these beautiful illustrations throughout it. I mean, not so much that it's a picture book, but and I really like the cover. I didn't feel like the story was super, super strong. But that's often the case with juvenile fiction anyways. As far as juvenile fiction goes, I thought it was pretty good. It's kind of much tamed down in the same vein as White Fang or Call of the Wild. Very much in the same vein, but much milder for younger kids. So I would recommend it for someone who enjoys like dog books and that. It would work. It's kind of got some dark things that happen in it, but overall it's a kind of optimistic. So I recommend it. And I'll be keeping it. The Search for Delicious by Natalie Babbitt. This was just weird. But I liked it enough where I'm not going to unhaul it yet. It's kind of very much, it's a fable, you know, kind of teaching a moral. It's not too heavy-handed though. It's not like right and wrong, so to speak. It's more, it's kind of making fun of the battles that we fight, kind of the arguments we get in, sort of, is a good way to describe it. The other one I just read was Nenoch Rise. This is also very much a fable. It's about belief. So this town believes that there's a monster at the top of Nenoch Rise, and it's a very important part of their town culture. It's something that their whole village sort of revolves around. And this boy comes to visit, and he can't help himself. He investigates what's up there, and he finds his missing uncle up there. Sorry, there's a lot of spoilers. I should have said spoiler alert, and I'm sorry. And then the question is whether or not it was worth losing their belief and wonder to know the truth of what's up there. So that was kind of neat. You know, it was a good, almost philosophical, I guess, thought. Then I have the Animal Arc books. I have a collection of these. I bought them for my kid to read. I am not obligating myself to read anything that I bought exclusively for my kid to read. I did read this one, and I liked that, I used to love this, well, I still love James Herriot's veterinary books, and this one kind of made me think that the author was probably a fan. It's definitely very much for kids. This one was super overdramatic, but you know, kids sometimes like that kind of thing. It's a little heavy-handed for me, but that's okay. Let's see. So then I just read The Frog Princess as well by E.D. Baker. I liked this one. I would probably pick up the rest of this series if I found it discounted, particularly in hardcover. You know, I wouldn't probably be able to resist. I'd probably buy the rest. And I'll be watching for a better copy of this one, because I liked it enough where I would keep it on my shelf. It's the kind of book where I would like to lend it out to someone else, you know? Definitely for kids, but it was cute. Peter Pan by Sir James M. Barrie. I just read this one as well. It's got problematic content. I don't necessarily recommend it for kids. If you're an adult reading through the classics, that's the target audience. That's who I recommend it for. I still enjoyed it anyways, but obviously, I don't know if I'm not going to encourage my child to read it until we've read some other things, kind of discussing why some of this content's problematic before she reads it. You know, kind of give her a basis. I don't have a problem with reading problematic things. I read a lot of problematic things. Anyone who reads classics reads things that are not super great. The important thing is just, I think, to give kids context before you throw them into it. So yeah. I'm not going to make myself read Ivy and Bean. This is book 4. What I think I'm going to do is check out book 1 from the library. Kid and I will read it together. If she likes it, we'll keep book 4. If we don't like it, we'll go ahead and unhaul book 4. This one's not in any danger of going anywhere. Actually, I really like the covers for these particular ones, so I'd like to get the rest of the books. This is a collection that includes Wonderful Wizard of Oz, Marvelous Land of Oz, and Awesome of Oz. And I mentioned in another video that I'd read book 1, I read book 3 as a child, have not read book 2. So that will be one that I'm reading. The next one I read this month was The Penderwicks by Jean Birdsall. This reads like an old-fashioned story. It's kind of funny. It reminded me of things like Little Women and Eight Cousins. It's got kind of a timeless appeal to it. There are modern conveniences mentioned in the book, like, you know, ovens and cars and TV, but just briefly and not in enough detail to really date itself. So that's pretty good. I wish now some of the later ones were discounted at Books A Million, and now I wish I would have got them. I just bought the first one, but I think that these are actually pretty good. Now I wish I would have bought the rest of them. But you don't know till you read them, right? This is book 10 of Humphrey. I purchased it because it was discounted down to, you know, $2 whole. And so I bought it. However, we haven't read it yet. And I think what I'm going to do, same thing, check out book 1 from the library. If we like it, Ken and I will read it together. If we like it, great, we'll keep book 10 and gradually accumulate the others. If we don't like it, then I can just donate book 10. Alright. Coffee. My little Bambi cup. One moment. Coffee is needed. Alright. So next we have my collection of Judy Blume. Ones that I've read recently. I read Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret recently. I thought that was interesting. I could see why it was so popular, and why there was such a fuss about it when it first came out. I'll probably watch for a nicer copy of it, because I don't really like that copy very much. Freckle Juice I read as a kid. It's so tiny, though, I think I'll go ahead and reread it as part of my Reading Mount TBR challenge. The other ones I need to read are Fudgemania, Super Fudge. Oh my god, I bought an autographed one. Oh, wow. When did I buy that? I don't know when I bought that. Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, otherwise known as Sheila the Great. Oh, and another Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. I guess that's because I have the autographed one. So, I have an autographed one and a reader copy. So, yay. So most of those I still have to read. So I'm going to try to read those probably November. I think my goal is going to be to mostly... I'm going to skip around a little bit. But I'm going to try to read most of this shelf in November. The next two I have to read are Enid Blyton Secret 7 and The Five Go to Smuggler's Top, the Amelia Jane collection, Last Kids on Earth. Wuthering Heights I do not need to read. I already read this. I read this a few years ago. And of course read it as a teenager, and I've read it several times. Silly crocheted hat, better get back in there. Alright. I don't need to read Flat Stanley. I do need to read How Lunchbox Jones, Save Me from Robots Traders, and Missy the Cruel. Alright. Sliding slightly over. Whee! There we go. And getting shorter. There we go. So then I have all the Beverly Cleary books. I need to read all of these, except Dear Mr. Henshaw, which I've read. I need to read these ones because of Mr. Turret, Mr. Majeka. You know what? I'm going to let myself skip Erie Elementary. I read this with my kid. It's not much fun. It's good for, like, beginning readers. It's not bad for beginning readers, but it's not much fun for anyone else, which is it. It's just how it is. I have to read Witch's Buttons. And I did this Choose Your Own Adventure. I've already read through that one. So I just have Lost Jewels of Nabuti, which I haven't read. So I am hoping to get most of this one done in November. I'm not sure. I might skip this one just because it's giant. But if I got the rest of them done in November, and I might also skip Marvelous Oz. I might skip those two, and it'll just be Judy Blume and Beverly Cleary pretty much, and then a couple odds and ends. So, yeah, that's the plan for November. So we'll see how far I make it. And I'll have to make a note that we talked about the ones I'd read up to the Penderwicks, so I won't discuss those in the next video. I'll just discuss here on how far I made it. My goal is really, my collection is to be read and then, you know, unhauled when I'm done with it, or kept if it's an absolute favorite where I think I'll read it again, or where I think my daughter will read it. So we'll see. Hopefully I make some space on my shelves. That would be good. I don't picture myself getting rid of too much of this, unfortunately. I pick out pretty good stuff. I know my stuff. I didn't work in a library for 5 years for no reason. So juvenile fiction, I mean, I know juvenile fiction, so most of the stuff is going to be decent. I mean, there's a couple, I mean, realistically, I could probably unhaul Animal Arc. That's just not the way my daughter is, but I'm still wishful thinking. There's like 4 or 5 in here I think I'll end up unhauling, I think. So, we'll see. I think I'll make a follow-up video for this one at the end of November. So don't expect to see anything for this until end of November. And then I'll record 2 separate videos. I'll record a wrap-up of this shelf and how far I made it, and then a separate video of the next shelf, which finishes out with more Beverly Cleary, and, well, starts with more Beverly Cleary, I should say, and then ends with, let's pan over and see, oh, what's on the end there? Karen Harrington. Woo, Kit Harington, I'm thinking of a different thing, right? Karen Harrington's Courage for Beginners, and Hartnett's The Silver Donkey. So that will be December's project. There. That's December's project. So, if this all goes well, I'll probably start incorporating some of the books from the top shelves, which are my classics, which, as everybody knows, are kind of tedious, slow reads. So I'll start combining those in here and there, I think. I'm not sure how to do it, but I'll figure it out. I'll figure out a method where I intersperse them with my juvenile fiction so that I don't have a shelf of just classics to read at the end. Because I'll tell you right now, that project wouldn't last very long. I like classics. A few a year. So yeah, we'll see. If you stuck it out this long, thank you. And I'll see you in the next video.